Hi everyone, so in today's video I want to show you how you can make custom size envelopes on the ScanNCut machine using the pre-installed designs. So if you follow my channel you may have seen the video I made showing how to cut multiple shapes and getting the most from your piece of card, and I cut these circles in the white and the night of navy. And I then made them into Christmas cards using the Stampin' Up! Pre-scored Whisper White note cards that already have envelopes. And all these cards were made from this Feels Like Frost designer series paper pack, which are 6x6. And I chopped the 6x6 in half, and then I cut the 3" by 6 down to make these cards. And at the time when I was chopping all these cards fronts up, I said, obviously I'm left with all these bits of paper and I'll have to find a use for them. So I took a stack. These are all double-sided, by the way, so they're all silver on one side, different silver designs, and then obviously they're all the Feel Like Frost photographic images on the back. So I took a stack of those and I cut them all up at 2.5 inches long by 1/2 inch wide, and I cut a bunch of them up and made them, or I've started making them, into some Christmas cards. So this was a piece of UK A4, which on the landscape, I cut in half and then into quarters, so I get 4 cards from one A4 sheet. Scored them, folded them, and then I stuck my silver strips on the back. I stamped this greeting, which is from a Host stamp set, in real red to match the card, and then I've just laid it up on 3D foam and used a little rhinestone just over the eye for Christmas. So these cards are 4 1/8 by 2 7/8. That's the actual size of the red card. Now I could use my envelope punch board and find the nearest size and make some envelopes, but I decided, using the ScanNCut, to use one of the built-in envelopes and resize it to fit. And this fits in here comfortably, and I've got a custom envelope. So I'm going to show you how I resized the envelopes that are in here, which are big envelopes, which would do a regular A6 if you live in the UK, or I think you call it an A2 card in other parts of the world. The actual envelopes that are in ScanNCut machine are big enough to do that size card, but these are obviously smaller. So I've got the ScanNCut switched on. Now I'm using the CM900, and these envelopes obviously are in this machine. I am sure that at least some of them were in my previous CM600. So the likelihood is that hopefully you will have an envelope in your machine, whichever one you're using. So I'm going to go into pattern, into this section with the parcel and the flower, and I'm going to go to page 2, and here there are some envelopes. Now there are 6 designs here, and the one that I've just shown you was the second one, which is AR-M002. And the actual size of this envelope is 10.69 inches high by 8.12 inches wide. So I'm going to say set and just put it on my mat, and hopefully you'll be able to see, you know, it's a decent size and would easily fit, you know, a bigger card. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move it down here out of the way because I'm going to put another shape on, and with this being quite big, your shapes tend to come up in the top left hand corner of your mat. And if you have your design anywhere up here, you might sometimes get a message saying there's not enough room on the mat. So I'm just going to move it out of the way and go to add, come back to the basic shapes, and I'm just going to choose a rectangle. Now, as I say, I know the size of this card is 2 7/8 by 4 1/8, but I obviously need my envelope to be slightly bigger to get the card in and out. So for the video, I'm going to say that this card is 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. So I'm just making it slightly bigger. So I'm going to uncheck the maintain aspect ratio. I'm going to take the width up to 4 1/4 and the height up to 3 1/4. And say set. So this rectangle now represents the red card I've just shown you, but slightly bigger than the red card I've just shown you, if that makes sense. So now I'm just going to bring it over here where I can see it. I'm going to position this rectangle into the centre of this envelope. I'm going to come into the editing icon, over here into this icon with the square and the 2 arrows. I'm going to select the envelope. Now, one thing I would say about these pre-installed envelopes, you can only adjust them in proportion. So this will only work for a card that's a rectangular shape, not a square card, because you can't unlock the maintain aspect ratio to adjust its height and width separately. You can only do it in proportion. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just, it doesn't matter which one, but I tend to go for the height. I'm going to take the height down until the centre of this envelope shrinks to fit my rectangle here that's representing my red Christmas card. So I'm just going to keep shrinking it down and moving it until I can see that my rectangle fits comfortably inside it. And it looks as though the size now of this is going to be 8.25, so 8 1/4 by 6.27, so just a hair over 6.5. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to zoom in and zoom to 400%. I'm just going to drag the envelope up to the top left hand corner and then bring it in. I might have to select my rectangle and go back to zoom. And then drag in my rectangle and just make sure that it sits within those black dotted lines of my envelope. And then if I click on the envelope, I can see it better. And I know it does because, as I say, I've already cut this one. So I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to select the rectangle and send it to the trash because I don't need it. So I've now got the size I need to make a custom size envelope for that piece of card. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come back into the editing icon. I'm going to say 2 and say OK. And because I think I can get 2 cut from a piece of 12 by 12. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate one of them. So I'm going to come into the editing icon here again, use the rotate, and I'm going to rotate it 180, say OK, OK, and I think I can get 2 of these from one piece of 12 by 12 and they're not touching. So I'm going to say OK. OK. Now, I've already got a piece of 12 by 12 paper. Now this is some old K & Company single-sided scrapbook paper loaded onto my regular mat, and I've had this, it's from a stack, I think it's like a 500 stack pad of scrapbook paper, and I know some of you have got it because I remember using it in a previous video and some people left me comments saying I've got the same stack. So I'm going to load the mat into the machine. I'm just holding it at the front by the arrow. Now I've got my blade set to 3, but this is an old blade. You need to do a test cut as I've shown you how to do in previous videos, because all these blades are set differently in all the machines. And as I say, you know, your blade could be a different age and had a different amount of use than mine has. But what I will say, in the settings, I've got my cut pressure on 0. And then I did a test cut before I cut this one. So I know that it should cut on that cut pressure with this blade. I'm going to say OK and cut. Okay, so that's finished. I'm going to unload the mat. Just going to peel away the waste, and as you can see, I've got 2 custom envelopes. And when I said I did a test cut, when I did my previous one, still there on the mat. So, you know, I still do test cuts. I'm, you know, still learning how to use this machine for different things, you know, even though I've been using it for years. So I'll just fold up one to show you. Now, depending on your paper, these score lines are quite fine, and they can be a little bit hard to see, but I've got my glasses on so I can see them. So I'm just going to fold on the score line. I'm just going to give it a burnish. Once you start to bend your paper, usually, you know, the fold lines appear for you. And I'm filming this at night, so I'm hoping that there's no glare. So there is my envelope. So I'll just bring in my custom, you know, card, because as I say, this is a, you know, not necessarily a standard size card that you would buy. As I say, this was a piece of A4 that I chopped into quarters. And you can see that even though, you know, this envelope started off to be used as a bigger card, I can now use it, you know, for my card. And because I added a little bit extra on to when I measured the card, you can see how it fits in there comfortably. So it just needs gluing together now. So what I'll do quickly, I'll just bring in a little bit of wet glue. You don't need much because obviously it is only paper. And I'll just give that a rub and give it a minute to grab. And then open it up, my card, you know, even with its layers on. I don't know if you can, how well you can see this, but it is on 3D foam. So even with its layers on, fits in there comfortably, easily. And then that's flat, will fold over. So, you know, you could just put a little bit of a glue dot or something on there and stick it down, or you could use a sticker to stick it down. And it doesn't matter really that this paper's not really Christmas, because I'm going to print some labels on my Dymo labeler, and you know, with the name and addresses on, and they're going to cover up most of the envelope. But I get 2 envelopes from one piece of 12 by 12, and it's just a way of using up, you know, a stack of paper that I've had for years and years and years, and is saving me having to buy some envelopes to go with my custom size card, or it's saving me having to use the envelope punch board. And it's such a pretty envelope. It's got a lovely design on the back. So that's how, using an envelope that's already in the ScanNCut machine, you can resize it to fit, you know, most size cards. As I say, it only works with rectangles because you can only adjust the height and width in proportion, so you can't unlock the aspect ratio to make it into a square. And I did a test and I resized the envelope even bigger than its standard size, and I reckon you could make a card that is up to about 6 inches wide and 4.75, so 4 3/4 high, and be able to make an envelope from it, from, you know, the design that this design I've just shown you. But the standard size envelope that's in there as it comes would easily make an envelope for a regular UK A6, or I think in the US you might call them an A2. But obviously I was making a smaller one and I just wanted to try it. So I hope you found the tip helpful of, you know, using a shape to then be able to adjust the envelope size. Please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you've got the bell notification icon switched on. And I will hopefully see you in my next video. Thank you.